Her son's voice over the phone was cold, distant, almost like he was speaking to a stranger, asking for rent money. Her daughter-in-law's laughter floated faintly in the background, light and detached. By the end of the call, the word mother felt quietly revoked. I used to think families fell apart through fights, slammed doors, and broken plates. But they often unravel quietly, through politeness, through "we're just trying to help," through a calm managerial tone that implies you are no longer trusted with your own life. I'm 64, a retired nurse. I stepped back from work 4 years ago, when my knees started complaining louder than my patience ever did. I raised 2 children, mostly on my own, after my husband died of heart failure at 49. 3 weeks after his death, I returned to work. Grief didn't pay the mortgage. Every coin I had went to Adam and Lily, tuition, braces, birthdays. I missed but compensated with money. Money was how I showed love. Security was how I promised not to fail them like life had failed me. That day on the phone, Adam spoke like a verdict. "You should be grateful. We still answer your calls, Mom." His words didn't sound cruel at first. Just rehearsed, tired. Claire laughed softly. Not at me, but something about me. "Grateful?" I asked. "For what?" "For everything we're doing," he said, voice tight like a seatbelt. "Managing my accounts, paying bills automatically. I just had to worry about where my money went." A pause. That silence where love used to live. "Mom, please don't start again," Claire said. Louder now. "You asked us to help. You said numbers confuse you." I wanted to remind her. I'd balanced hospital budgets for 20 years, juggled overtime, debt, and 2 school fees without missing rent. But I said nothing. Right. I must have forgotten the truth. I never asked them to take control. It happened slowly, like frost creeping over glass while you sleep. Joint access for emergencies first, then shared credit cards. One Christmas, a power of attorney slid under my coffee cup with a smile. They called it convenience, and I wanted to believe my own children wouldn't use the word help as a leash. After the call, I sat at the kitchen table staring at my phone. Their picture glowed. Adam holding Claire, laughing. Perfect teeth, youth, distance. I pressed block contact just to see what it would feel like. I didn't do it, not yet, but the idea felt clean, satisfying. The house was silent, except for the hum of the fridge. Silence gets louder when no one is coming. I made tea the same way I had for 40 years. 1 spoon of sugar, even though the doctor says half. Old habits are loyal. I kept replaying that word, grateful. It reminded me of patients in the dementia ward, told to be grateful for weekly visits, soft cruelty disguised as kindness. I'd seen it 1,000 times. Children speaking slowly to women who once changed their diapers. Detachment isn't born overnight. It's practiced. The kettle clicked off. I didn't move to pour. In the oven door's reflection, I saw myself, gray hair tied back, cardigan loose, a woman who traded her youth for duty, and was now told to be grateful she hadn't been completely forgotten. When did gratitude become obedience? I looked around the kitchen, the cupboards Adam had painted, the new dishwasher Claire insisted on installing. Every corner whispered their ownership. Somehow, I'd stopped leaving mine. That night, I opened the cedar box of documents. Marriage certificate, property deed, savings passbook. My hands shook. Many had their names attached now. A quiet theft of trust in black ink. I felt ashamed, not of them, but of how easily I allowed it. Love can make you blind, bureaucratically stupid. I closed the box, set it by my chair, and said aloud, "That's the last time I ask for their help." The words didn't feel brave, only tired, but underneath, a heartbeat of defiance stirred. I left the phone on the counter when they called. I didn't answer. Let them hear what gratitude sounds like when it stops echoing back. The next morning, the house felt too clean. The kind of clean after throwing away something you didn't mean to. I sat by the window, tea cold, watching a neighbor's dog chase a squirrel. Animals still fight for what's theirs. I used to think aging was about the body giving up, knees, eyesight, memory, but it's also about erasure, one kindness at a time, until you've been managed out of your own life. I swore I'd never be my mother. She spent her last years afraid to touch the thermostat, because my brother called it love, I called it submission. Silence is not peace. I learned that too late. I remember holding Adam's hand to school for the first time. Don't worry, sweetheart. I'll always be right here. I meant it. Every shift, every ache, all to keep that promise. Now the same boy screens my calls. I taught him responsibility. So well he learned to use it against me. Claire helped shape it, soft but sharp, making cruelty sound reasonable. I admired her. I even called her the daughter I never had. When she offered to manage my bills, I believed her. You've done enough, Mom. Let us take it from here. I wanted it to be true. Tiredness makes you want rest, just before someone chains it to a favor. It began with convenience, linking my pension account, putting house insurance under their address. Soon I was signing things without reading, trusting smiles because love meant trust. When I finally looked, it was too late. My name's second on half the accounts. Some things aren't stolen at once. They're quietly reshelved. After my husband died, people said I was strong. I wasn't. I just didn't have time to collapse. Women like me are told endure, don't break, don't rage, don't inconvenience. So I worked, paid, waited, hoping the next generation would be kinder. But I recognize it now. Claire tilts her head just so, that sympathetic nod before a cutting remark. It's the same my father used on my mother. Generations loop back, cruelty evolving quietly. I think of Lily, my daughter, married, out of state, busy. She doesn't know what Adam and Claire have done. Maybe she wouldn't believe me. Betrayal makes you sound paranoid before it makes you sound right. Afternoons, I walk again, slow laps around the block. Neighbors wave, chat. I say nothing. Pride insists some wounds are meant to be silent. Still, every step counts. One for each year I gave, one for each yes I said when I wanted to say no. Regret has a rhythm, steady, almost comforting, but beneath it, something shifts. I open the old file cabinet, folders neatly labeled, utilities, mortgage, insurance, bank statements. My handwriting from years ago, strong, unashamed. Archaeology in my own life. Every document proof that I was capable, reliable, trusted. I whispered, "You're still in here." Because I am. Underneath exhaustion, beneath politeness, there's a pulse that hasn't stopped. My mother said, dignity isn't about how you're treated. It's about what you allow. I understand now. Quiet doesn't mean surrender. It means listening, waiting, choosing your moment. So I keep my tea, my walks, pretending not to notice the small edits they've made. For now, every wound teaches. And mine is teaching me to stop mistaking endurance for love. It began small, the way most betrayals do, a question too reasonable to seem rebellious. "Adam," I said, voice steady, "I'd like to see this month's statements." He sat at my kitchen table, scrolling his phone, the one I'd bought him years ago. Irony wasn't lost on me. "Mom," he said, not looking up, "you don't need to worry. Everything's on auto now." "I know. But I set like to see it anyway." He exhaled that world-weary sigh people use when they've decided you're being difficult. "It's complicated, Mom. The accounts are all linked. Claire set it up for efficiency. You get confused." Confused, as if it were a diagnosis. I looked at him, that open, honest face, from years ago, gone. Now calm, secure. The calm of money that feels like possession. "I used to manage the ICU budget," I said quietly. "I think I can handle my own electric bill." He finally glanced up, narrowing his eyes. "Why are you getting defensive? We're just trying to help." The word help again, a threadbare justification. Claire entered then, tablet in hand, her authority unmistakable. What's going on here? She wants to see the statements, Adam said. Soft but loaded. Claire smiled. That polished, professional smile, the one she must have practiced in mirrors. Of course, Mom, you can see anything you want. I sell print a summary, next time I send them home. No need to stress over the details. That word, details, sank into me like a knife. Details were how I survived 40 years of nursing. Dosages, schedules, names, they were my language. My children had food on the table because I lived by details. Now my competence was just a footnote in their system. Is that rather not wait, I said calmly. Just forward me the files. Her smile faltered slightly. They set her in shared folders. You might not have access. Sit, I'm sure I can find a way. Silence filled the room, that thin, electric kind before a storm. Adam reached for my hand, too gently, too rehearsed. Mom, please don't make this harder than it is. We said you're just trying to make things easier for you. And there it was. Love, turned inside out. The line people use when control replaces care. I pulled my hand away. Easier for who? His expression flickered. Hurt, guilt, or maybe irritation. I couldn't tell anymore. You stir overthinking, he said softly. We just want you to relax. You worked your whole life. I have, I said, standing despite the ache in my knees, but Dawn set mistake tired for helpless. The room froze. Claire blinked once, then straightened the flowers on the counter, retreating into her practiced cheer. Well, she said lightly, we should get going. We settle call later this week, Mom. Of course. They left without a hug. A small thing, but I noticed. I watched from the window as their car disappeared down the gravel drive. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was surgical. Later that night, I walked into the study, the one they said I didn't need anymore, because everything's digital. I turned on my old desktop, dust coating its edges. It took 5 minutes to start, wheezing like an old dog. When the screen finally lit up, I logged in. Same password, since 2007. Then I changed it. Not anymore. 2024. Something inside me shifted. I spent hours navigating forgotten accounts, utilities, insurance portals, medical logins. Most redirected or were locked, but a few opened. I saw edits, new addresses, missing contact info, quiet updates, done with surgical precision. They'd been busy. When I shut it down, the room was dark, except for the soft blue glow fading from the screen. My heart was steady. I realized I wasn't angry. Not yet. Anger is a luxury, and I couldn't afford distraction. That night, I dreamed of my husband. We sat on the old porch swing, him reading the paper, me shelling peas. He turned and said, "You always see the signs too late." Then I looked down. My hands were empty. I woke before dawn to the smell of dust and rain. "Not this time," I whispered. I brewed coffee strong enough to taste like resolve. Then I pulled out a notepad and wrote 3 words. Start paying attention. Underneath, I listed what I still controlled: my pension, my deed, and a small savings account I'd opened decades ago, under my maiden name. It wasn't much, but it was mine. And in that early hour, I felt it. That quiet hardening, the calm that comes when fear burns itself out. I wasn't planning anything yet, but I had stopped being managed. They just didn't know it. The letter arrived on a Tuesday, the kind of day that pretends to be ordinary. A thin envelope, no return address, just my name. I almost threw it out with the junk mail. Inside was a single page from my insurance provider, a confirmation of beneficiary update. Claire's name listed first, Adam's below. My signature at the bottom, except I hadn't signed anything. At first, I thought it was an error. I even laughed. That hollow sound people make when the unthinkable wears a bureaucratic face. Then I saw the date, last month. The same week, Adam came to fix my Wi-Fi. The kettle was whistling. When my hands started shaking, I let it scream until the water boiled dry. When you've worked in hospitals, you learn the sound of disbelief. It's quiet, the silence that follows. I'm sorry, there's nothing more we can do. That's what this felt like. A private diagnosis of betrayal. I called the insurance helpline. A woman named Denise answered, chipper and rehearsed. Mrs. Harlow, I see the update was made digitally through your client portal. I don't have a client portal, I said. According to our records, you do. Same email, two-factor verification completed via mobile. I didn't need to ask whose phone number that was. Denise explained the protocols, the timestamps, the layers of digital signatures. Her tone was kind, but distant. The tone of someone who delivers quiet disasters every day. When I hung up, I felt it. That small, rooted seed of rage settling deep inside. That evening, I called Adam. Hey, Mom, he said brightly. Everything okay? I got a letter from the insurance company, I said. They said there was a beneficiary change. Silence. Then his voice shifted. Polite, firm. Oh yeah, we meant to mention that. Claire handled it. Just some updates to keep things simple. Simple, I repeated. Meaning I no longer exist on my own policy. Mom, don't set dramatize. It sets just logistics. We set her streamlining things. Claire's voice floated in the background. A whisper, a laugh. I didn't sign anything, I said. Digitally you did. Remember when I helped you set up your online account last month? I remembered. He'd stood behind me, right here, telling me to click approve. I thought it was a Wi-Fi update. I'd even thanked him. Something inside me froze. Not shattered, just still. Adam, I said slowly. Undo it. Mom, that's not how it works. You don't need to worry about this paperwork. We doing what's best for you. What's best for me? I said evenly. Seems to make you awfully comfortable. A pause. The kind where truth hangs, unsaid. You start tired, Mom. You don't understand how complicated these things get. I laughed. Short, sharp. Oh, I understand complicated. I raised complicated. Fed it, clothed it, paid its tuition. He hung up before I finished. That night, I spread every document I owned across the bed. Bank letters, property taxes, insurance files. I went through them like a detective who already knew the suspect's name. The pattern was clear. They'd been closing in for months. Small authorizations, pre-filled forms, contact numbers I didn't recognize. It wasn't set control they wanted. It was ownership. At 2 a.m., I sat among the papers. The lamp buzzed softly. I thought of my mother, her trembling hands, that unpaid bill my brother said he'd handle. I used to pity her. Now, I didn't pity either of us. There's a moment in every woman's life when pity hardens into steel. Mine came that night. Quiet. Absolute. The next morning, I went to the bank. The teller, a young woman with kind eyes, looked over my accounts. Everything looks fine, Mrs. Harlow. All authorized under joint management. Can you tell me who the other party is? Not sure I can disclose that. Then don't I said. Just tell me, does the name start with a C? Her hesitation was enough. When I stepped outside, the air felt colder, clearer. The world hadn't changed. I had. On the walk home, I caught my reflection in the bank's glass door. Not older, just awake. At home, I lit a match and held it over a photograph. Adam and Claire at their wedding. Their smiles were genuine then. My husband's ring still on my hand. The flame curled the edges slowly, beautifully. I dropped it into the fireplace. Let's see how grateful you'll be when the answering stops, I whispered. The fire hissed, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I felt precise. They say grief has stages: denial, anger, bargaining, acceptance. But they forget the fifth one: documentation. The next morning, I opened my notebook and wrote 3 new words. They've mistaken mercy for weakness. I started small, quietly. The habits of a nurse never fade. Observation first, then response. I called Janine, an old coworker who'd turned legal consultant. She was the kind of woman who used to outsmart hospital administrators with a polite smile. "Well, if it isn't Set St. Margaret," she said. "Finally bored of pretending to rest?" "Something like that," I said. "I need legal advice." There was a pause, the kind born from old friendship. "They took something, didn't Set they?" "Not all at once," I said. "But enough. The accounts, the forms, the word grateful hanging over it all." She sighed. "Used it or not the first. But you might be the first I seen still standing." Then she told me how to fix it. How to revoke power of attorney, request statements quietly, reopen dormant accounts. "It still take time," she warned. "You still have to act invisible. Let them think you still gain the still under their thumb." I smiled. "I's been invisible for years, Janine. I's been good at it." That week became my quiet campaign. Each morning, I brewed strong coffee and played the part. Online puzzles, gardening, polite calls with Claire as she bragged about managing our household. I let her talk, let her believe the lines were still taut. Meanwhile, I was cutting every thread. I visited the old credit union downtown, the one where I'd opened my first account when Adam was still in diapers. The same clerk, older now, recognized me. "Mrs. Harlow, it's been ages." "I set like to review my personal accounts," I said softly. "Not the joint ones, the old ones." Her eyes flickered with understanding. She printed the statements slowly, deliberately. "You take these home," she whispered. "And if anyone calls asking, I never saw you." There's a quiet strength among women who've been underestimated. I spent long nights sorting through numbers, tracing transactions like footprints, and what I found was worse than I expected. They'd been transferring small amounts regularly, barely noticeable, but steady, like termites weakening a foundation. I didn't cry. I highlighted, took notes, and learned. Janine introduced me to a lawyer named Cora, mid-40s, direct and precise. We met in a quiet cafe. She listened carefully, then asked, "Do you want justice or peace?" "Both," I said, "but in that order." She smiled. "Then we still start by revoking their authority. You still need to make it look like an estate update. Polite, not confrontational." I liked her immediately. Together we drafted letters, contacted institutions, and built a wall of paperwork around what was still mine. Each step felt like regaining oxygen I hadn't realized I'd lost. During this time, I spoke more with my granddaughter Emma, 17, sharp and perceptive. She visited one weekend with cinnamon rolls and quiet concern. "Mom says you've been busy," she said, glancing at the papers on my table. "Just cleaning up some mess," I replied. She studied me, then said, "I know what Uncle Adam Sip's been doing." My heart sank. "How?" "He bragged about it at Christmas, said he sits taking care of your finances." "He sits, Grandma," he said it like you were a pet. Something inside me stilled. I watched her, this young woman, with her mother's softness and my resolve. "Don't set tell anyone what you sup seen," I said quietly. "Not yet." She nodded. "Do you need help?" After a pause, I handed her my tablet. "See if you can trace these logins." Her eyes lit up. Finally, something useful. That night, she sat on the couch, fingers flying across the screen. "Got it," she said. "They Scepter using Claire Sepp's business email. It's Sepp's all tied to the same IP address." I laughed. Real laughter this time. The kind that feels like life returning. "Oh, sweetheart," I said. You just gave me my favorite kind of proof. When she left Sunday evening, I hugged her tightly. Are you going to tell them? She whispered. Yes, I said. But first I'll show them. After she left, I sat at my desk and organized the papers into 3 stacks: accounts, insurance, and future. For the first time in months, the house didn't feel like a cage. It felt like a command center. People imagine revenge as fire, fierce and immediate, but real justice is cold, deliberate, administrative. You don't rage through it, you file through it, one signature at a time. By the end of that week, I'd opened new accounts under my maiden name, redirected my pension, and rewritten my will. Cora would finalize it soon. I wasn't waiting for an apology anymore. I was preparing for discovery. I wanted them to see it, the moment they realized I was never theirs to manage. Justice didn't come with thunder. It arrived in silence, sealed in paperwork. By spring, every signature that once tied me to them was gone. Every document that once bound me now sat in a folder marked finalized. Janine called it restructuring. Cora called it protection. I called it reclamation. The first move was subtle. A change of mailing address. Everything was redirected to my lawyer's office. No warning, no explanation. Then came the account transfers. 3 bank visits, 2 notarized letters, and 1 conversation with a kind manager who, after reading between the lines, simply said, "Good for you." Within 2 weeks, every dollar that bore their names had a new home. I closed the joint cards, then the shared checking. The deed was trickier, but Cora handled it quietly, removing their safety claim. When it was done, my finances were clean, my authority restored, and they still had no idea. The reveal came unexpectedly. Claire called, voice tight and strained. "Mom, the mortgage payment bounced. The account says insufficient funds. What happened?" I let silence hang just long enough. "Oh," I said, "I must set forgotten to tell you. I moved everything into new accounts. Keeps things simpler." "You what?" "Dawn set worry," I added calmly. "It sets all handled." Her composure cracked. "Mom, that SEP's not how this works. The bills are in our names. We manage those for a reason." I could hear Adam in the background asking what was wrong. "Well," I said, "you still have to manage them on your own now." The silence turned heavy before Adam's voice broke through, tight and angry. "You can just move the money, Mom. That's not legal." I smiled. "Oh, but it is. You made sure of that when you transferred ownership. Said it was all in my best interest, remember?" He stammered, then went quiet. I hung up mid-sentence. They called 8 times that day. I didn't answer. By evening, I unplugged the phone. The next morning, I sat by the window, coffee in hand, watching a sparrow tug a string from the grass. Nature never apologizes for reclaiming what's hers. By noon, they were at my door. Adam looked pale, his composure cracking. Claire stood beside him, tense. "Mom," he said, voice caught between anger and pleading. "What did you do?" "I corrected a mistake," I said. "Several, actually." "You stir overreacting," Claire snapped. "We were protecting you." "From what?" "From yourself," she said, nearly shouting. "You don't understand how the world works anymore." That hit differently, not because it hurt, but because I saw myself in her, young, certain, and wrong. "I understand enough," I said. "You used my trust to build a cage around me. You mistook my age for ignorance. And when people say set's for your own good, set's they're usually lying." Adam Sepp's eyes glistened. "We didn't mean to hurt you. Intent," I said, "is what cowards hide behind when the damage Sepp's already done." Claire opened her mouth to argue, but I raised a hand. "You'll find the deed no longer lists your names. Utilities are under my lawyer's management. And the insurance policies." I let the words fade. Their faces told me they understood. Adam's shoulders slumped. Claire's jaw clenched. "You'll regret this," she said. "Maybe," I replied. "But at least it'll be my decision." They left in silence. The car door slammed, the sound of control slipping away. That night, I poured a cheap glass of wine. It tasted like victory. Later, Cora called. "It's done," she said. "They can touch a cent." "Thank you," I whispered. The words felt too small. After hanging up, I sat at the same kitchen table where Adam once told me to be grateful. I expected triumph, but felt something quieter. Peace. Freedom doesn't roar. Sometimes, it just exhales. Before bed, I wrote in my notebook, "Justice doesn't restore what's lost. It reminds you what remains." Days passed in silence. No calls, just letters. Adams was shaky, apologetic without actually apologizing, full of excuses about trying to make life easier. Claire's was typed cold, blaming me for creating distance. I fed that one straight to the fire. Some words don't deserve oxygen. Life slowly steadied. I filled my days with simple routines: watering plants, morning walks, quiet reading. The house felt lighter, honest. Neighbors stopped by with vegetables or small talk. They didn't say it, but their eyes carried a mix of pity and admiration. I didn't need witnesses. I had peace. Emma visited again. "Mom says you've changed," she said. "I have," I told her. She smiled. "Good." We sat in the garden, watching bees drift between lavender. She mentioned Adam had grown quiet, and Claire was furious. Said I sceptered ruined their credit. I laughed softly. Funny thing about credit, it was never theirs. "Do you feel better now?" she asked. "Not better," I said, "but whole." Months later, Adam showed up holding a potted fern. His eyes were tired. "Mom," he said, "can we talk?" He sat at the same table where everything began. I didn't mean for it to go that far. Claire said it was for convenience. I thought we were helping. I stayed silent. He looked up, voice trembling. "You changed." "Yes," I said. "Finally." He nodded, tears in his eyes. I said, "I'm sorry." "I know," I said, "but I not giving anything back." He smiled faintly. "Didn't think you would." When he left, he hugged me lightly, not as a son claiming something, but as a man acknowledging boundaries. Now my life is quiet in the best way. I cook for one, open my own mail, and read in silence. Freedom isn't loud or grand, it's steady, ordinary, mine. I've stopped confusing endurance with love. I've stopped waiting for kindness to be returned. And sometimes, walking through my garden, I think of my mother, how her silence once frustrated me. Now I understand. It wasn't surrender, it was reclamation. People call what I did revenge. It wasn't. Revenge burns. What I did was colder, slower, cleaner. I didn't want to destroy them, only to stop disappearing. They mistook my silence for weakness. They were wrong.